Peace, peace. This your host, Selah-Shalom. This is the Cosmon Teachings and the Words of Jehovah and His Angel Ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible OAHSPE. The topic of discussion today is called the Moon Cycle 101. I've been asked by a couple people to address the moon cycles, so I'm going to address it. I did a couple videos on it. I'll leave the links at the bottom so you can check them out. I just gave the blueprint on basically the 101 on the moon cycles. But like I said, the moon cycle is probably the most important thing to know, because it's the timekeeper. You know, you got to know the time and seasons and the cycles of the Creator in order to know when He's going to have His appointed times for certain things. The Most High said, I want everyone to flee up on the mountaintops on the second month, 17th day of the month. Now that's the Creator talking. Now He's not going to reference a Roman calendar in order for you to understand that. He's going to identify with His celestial calendar. So if you think you're going to go to the mountaintop February 17th, then you're going to miss the boat. You're going to miss the ship. But if you understood that the second month, referring to the second moon cycle, is a spring moon, and the 17th day would be a full moon, the 17th night and day of the moon. And then when you go up on that mountaintop, then you'd be taken up. So you got to be in tune with the correct times. So when the Most High starts, executing judgment, you'll be in the proper place. See that? So now, the moon cycle, the first thing you got to understand is the basics, just night and day. There's 24 hours in a day, and there's 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark. That's the basis. So a lot of Hebrews will say, well, when does the day begin? It begins when, 24 hours, the first 24 hours starts at evening, the going down of the sun. So nighttime would be the first 12 hours of the 24-hour period. And then when the sun rises, the second half of that 24-hour period would be the 12 hours of light or sunlight. Simple as that. Now, in order to keep track of the nights and days, the moon is the only thing that can do that. The sun doesn't go through phases in order for you to know when the beginning and the ending of a week is. So for example, if you wanted to start a calendar using the sun, you would have to create it. You would have to manually say when the beginning is and when the ending is of the week, and that would be considered a man-made calendar using the sun. But if you use the moon cycle, it's already etched in the cosmos how this cycle works. All you got to do is just keep a track of it. And that's the basis of understanding night and day, sun and moon as being the counting system in order to keep track of time. Keep track of a 7-day week system, keep track of a month, keep track of a year, and so on. So now, how do we determine when we start counting the moon? The moon starts on the new moon. The counting of the moon starts on the new moon. The new moon is not when the moon is dark. The new moon is when the moon shows its crescent light. That determines new moon. Now, when you see that first bulge of crescent light, that is day 1. You go ahead and mark 1 at the bottom of that, or your chart, or you just write down 1. However you decide to chart out your chart. I draw 30 circles and carve it in as the nights go, and I just put the numbers under it. So if you see that crescent moon, boom, put 1. The next night you go out there and observe again, you'll see the crescent moon, the light increase a little bit, you put 2. And you keep doing that. And then when you get to 7, you will see that the moon is half light and half dark. And that's the Sabbath night and day of the moon. It's all based off the moon. Don't let nobody fool you into saying that the lunar calendar is not the true calendar. Don't let them fool you with that nonsense. I hear a lot of Hebrews try to discredit the lunar calendar, and then they don't have nothing to replacement with. They say don't use the lunar calendar but still refer to Saturday as the Sabbath. That makes no sense at all. I'm giving you the raw and uncut truth, and I will debate, and I have debated plenty brothers on this topic and shut them down because they don't have no track of the lunar calendar. They just follow whenever the new moon comes in on some computer generated module, and they'll follow it in that manner. But I follow it, observing it day and night, night and day, as as it falls. So that's how you do. You just keep jotting down as the moon increases. And once you complete one full moon cycle, you will have a gist of how it works. You will see how the Creator mechanically moves the moon cycle as a clock. It's true indeed. It's a clock. Man can't alter that. You know what I'm saying? We cannot go up there and play with the moon and alter the moon. You have a lot of conspiracy theorists who talk about the moon is a satellite, the moon was taken from this place. All that is nonsense. The moon is in perfect sequence. It's been running in that course for eons. Since it's been created and placed there, the moon has been running in perfect sequence. That's why in ancient times, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Zarathustrians, the ancient Hebrews who was in tune with the Creator, they all followed the moon cycles. They knew what time it was. The Chinese, they still follow it to this day. You see that? So the lunar calendar is the true calendar. Just to make that clear. Now another thing to understand is that, you know, some nights you may miss the crescent moon. You may not see it because it may be cloudy. And in order to determine, you may miss it 2 days because it may be cloudy. So on the third day it may shine and you may see, well, damn. Well, what number is it now? Because I didn't catch it when the new moon was to come in. The way you could determine that is knowing the position of the moon each night. The moon has a numerical position for each night. So when the crescent comes in, it'll be real low at the horizon. When you see the first crescent moon, it'll be real low at the horizon. Then the second moon, it'll start to rise up and get higher. So the next step on understanding the moon cycle is understanding the positioning of the moon as the days increase. So if you miss the first 2 days and the moon comes out on the third, going down to the sun, and you see the crescent, you can know based off the position what day it is too. Now this is going to take some time. Don't think you're going to get this in one moon cycle. It's going to take you at least a good over a year to really comprehend this. First, you got to keep in mind. You got to keep reminding yourself to do it. That's one thing. You got to remind yourself to do it. Sometimes you may forget to keep track. You know, 3 days may go by and you may totally forget that you was charting out the moon. See, these are the simple things that you're not going to understand until you start doing it. So what I'm telling you is going to take. It's going to take over a year to even grasp it, because you got to know the position of the moon each night and day out of one moon cycle. So if the 14th moon roll around, you got to know where it's going to be positioned at the going down of the sun. So when the sun goes down, you'll know that the 14th moon is going to be coming up on the eastern horizon. It's going to be 180 degrees from the sun. See that? So the positioning of the moon plays a big part in this, because there may be days where you ain't going to be able to see the moon. So the positioning of the moon, understanding the numerical count system of the moon, from the crescent being 1, 2, 3, and as the light increases on the moon, that adds in with adding up with the numbers. So if it's the 7th moon, it'll be half light and half dark. So you got to understand the light and dark periods of the moon, along with the numerical, the numbers to the moon. See what I'm saying? And this is and like I said, this is the basis 101. And you can see how somewhat complicated it can be, because you have to get all this understood before you can even be equipped to speak on it. You know? So I'm going to just go through the book I put together called The Timetables of Prophecy, and just give you a quick rundown, because I got a chart in the book where I explain the moon cycles and the sun cycles. Now I'm going to give a quick rundown of the moon cycle. This is from my book, The Timetables of Prophecy, I put together a couple years ago. And it's a section in here I got called The Creator's Calendar, if you can see here. Creator's Calendar. And this is basically a breakdown of the moon cycle and the sun cycles. As you see, that the spring season contains the first moon cycle, the second moon cycle, and the third moon cycle. Then we move down to the summer season, which contained the fourth moon cycle, the fifth moon cycle, and the sixth moon cycle. Then we move down to the fall season, which is the 7th moon cycle, the 8th moon cycle, and the 9th moon cycle. And you have the winter season, which contains the 10th moon cycle, the 11th moon cycle, and the 12th moon cycle. Now these are the moon cycles that make up a year. 12 moon cycles makes up 1 year. Now as we go to the next page, this is the breakdown of 1 moon cycle. And as you see, we have here, it's 30 days in some moon cycles. The moon cycles vary from 29 to 30. And the only way to know that is by observing when the new moon come back in. Now, I'll just read a little bit of the book. It says, night and day is made up of 24 hours. 12 hours of night and 12 hours of day. The moon for night, the sun for day. Being that the sun does not go through phases in order to tell the days of the week, the moon will be the instrument in order to determine this. Because the moon goes through phases that can be counted to determine days, weeks, months, and years, the beginning of a moon cycle starts when the moon is a crescent moon known as the new moon. The new moon is determined when the first visible crescent is seen in the western sky at the going down of the sun. This would be called the first night, and when the sun rises, it would be called the first day. So the date would be read as the first night and day. Being that 7 nights and days make a week, this is also determined by the moon. 7 nights and days of the moon make 1 week. The first 7 days of the moon is considered the first week. And the moon goes through its phases to show the periods of light and dark on the moon for each night and day of the week. Now here is an example of the first week of a moon cycle. So here you have the first night, which is the new moon, the crescent, the second, the third, the fourth, and as you notice, the light on the moon begins to increase. And then when you get to the 7th moon, the night, and when you get to the 7th moon, it should be half and half, half light and half dark. And that's your Sabbath night of the moon. And when the sun rises, it's your Sabbath day, from evening to evening, or from sundown to sundown. And then you have the second week, from the 8th night and day of the moon to the 14th night and day of the moon, where the moon is a full moon, and that's the second Sabbath of the moon. And then the third week starts on the 15th night of the moon and ends on the 21st night of the moon. That makes the third week and the third Sabbath of a moon cycle. The fourth week, which is the last week in the moon cycle, starts at the 22nd night and day of the moon and ends on the 28th night and day of the moon, which appears as a crescent, but the bulging light appears on the opposite side, compared in the beginning of a moon, where the crescent is on the left side. And when the moon cycle comes to an end, the crescent would be on the left side. When the new moon comes to a beginning, the crescent is on the right side. So that's a little something to keep in mind. And when the 28th night of the moon comes, after that is when the moon right here. In total darkness. The 29th and the 30th. Now, in order to determine if it's going to be a 29th or 30th night and day of the moon, you would have to actually go out there and look at the as the sun goes below the horizon and see if the crescent moon appears. And if it appears after the 29th, then that previous moon cycle will be a 29-day cycle. And if it appears after the 30th, then the previous moon cycle was a 30-day cycle. See that? Show you. For example. See that? So if the moon cycle only has 29 days, and then you see the crescent appear the next night, then that previous moon cycle was a 29-day cycle. And if it has 2 dark periods of the moon, and then when you look at the horizon, at the sun at the going down of the horizon at the 30th at evening, you will see the crescent. You would always see the crescent if there's a 30-day cycle on the eve. So at the evening of the 30th, you would see the crescent at the going down of the sun, and that previous moon cycle would be a 30-day cycle. And then come to your Sabbaths. There's 4 Sabbaths in one moon cycle, and those Sabbaths are the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 29th. Those are your 4 Sabbaths in the moon cycle. They never change. 4, 7, 14, 21, 28. Those are the numbers for the Sabbaths in the moon cycle. And here's all 12 moon cycles making up 1 year with the seasons. So that's the basis 101 on the moon cycle as far as understanding the light and day and the numerology concerning the moon cycles and the periods of light on the moon. So each increase of light represents a number. So for example, on the Sabbath moon chart right here, when you see the moon half and half like this, with the white on the right and the black on the left, that's a 7th day moon. When you come to the 14th, it's a full moon. And when you come to the 21st, it's half and half, but this time the light is on the left side and the darkness is on the right side because it's waning, it's coming to a close. And that's the 21st. That's the 21st, the 3rd Sabbath. And then you have the last Sabbath in the moon cycle, which is the 28th. And it looks like a crescent, where the bulging light is on the left side. See that? So once you understand the light and dark periods on the moon and how they are appointed numbers, and then once you look up at the moon, you'll be able to somewhat determine what day it is if you ain't following it on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So now that's just an example of the book I put together to show you the moon cycles and the sun cycles, how it works with the seasons, how the numerical system adds up. See that? And like I said, this is basis 101. Like today, the 26th night and day of the moon, 10th moon cycle, we in the winter season. So, what I would do is I'll keep you informed of what moon it is. When I do my vids, I'll start off saying the moon cycles from here on out, so you can somewhat get a gist until you start keeping the track yourself. I got a brother on here that I build with. He's been following the moon cycles and he's been keeping up pretty good. He'll email me and ask me if this is the day of the moon, and when I look at my chart, it'll be the same. And he's been following it for a couple months now, and he's getting to understand it. So some of you other brothers got to seriously start charting this moon cycle out, because some of y'all like to talk about the prophetic prophecy, end time prophecy. The Bible got dates in it. In the flood of Noah, it said the flood took place on the 2nd moon, the 2nd month, 17th day of the month. And like I said, you can't use a Roman calendar to determine that. You can't use a Hebrew calendar to determine that, because that's before the Hebrews. You see that? So how would you determine that? Now, if we're dealing with God, the Creator, given that day, you know, we got to come back to the moon cycles. So that moon is so that day of the flood was the second moon cycle, 17th night and day of the moon. Full moon, spring season. See that? Rained 150 days. So the Bible gives you mathematics on the moon cycle, but you can't even break the codes of your own book. So a lot of these cats, Hebrews who read the scriptures, can't break the code of their own book because they're not in tune with the moon cycle. So if the Bible got dates, you got to be able to know how to identify those dates with the celestial calendar, not the Roman calendar, not Tuesday, Monday, January, February. You can't do that. See that? So I can break the code to the Bible when it comes to them dates. As I use the flood of Noah as one example. You know, then you have the Passover. You have many examples of dates in the scriptures that renders up the time and the season, but you got to know the moon cycle in order to know the time and the season. See that? So with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings. Shalom.